Coming up today on Real Life.
And I'll never forget the look on her face. It was the look of right through me and just saying, this isn't going to go this way. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, I'm not having this child. I'm having an abortion.
The depression was weighing heavier and heavier on me, and the guilt and the shame. And finally, one 2 a.m. morning in January of 1993, by my pool, I just said, God, if you are real, Jesus, if you are real, you've got to come into my life, because I just can't take it anymore. I just wanted peace.
In the hospital, we started seeing some of these women. You look in their charts and you see they had abortions in their past. But this was back in the late 80s, early 90s. We were just starting to see the connecting the dots between an abortion and suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts. And now, it's proven. It's proven.
We're so glad that you could join us today for Real Life. On Real Life, we follow the stories of women and men who experience unplanned pregnancies. Up first today, you'll meet Charles. After his first 2 experiences with abortion, he knew that something in his life needed to change.
My theme growing up is why me? Because I used to lay in bed at night. I'm an adopted child, I'm an only child. And I used to lay in bed at night and say, why me? How did I get here? God, how could you do this to me? You know, and I really defined my own definition of what God was, which was very unhealthy because it cost me a lifetime of turmoil and pain, especially when you add in the abortion experiences to that, that otherwise I didn't have to go through. I, like, I guess many teenagers, fell in love. I was very young, and I had started having inappropriate sex. And I remember being in the car with my girlfriend, and we were very young. I was probably 16, 17 years old, and she was probably a year younger than me. And she told me she was pregnant. We both just kind of looked at each other and felt our back was against the wall. And we were very young, had no resources. The number one thing you think is your parents are going to kill you. And all within about a 20 to 25-minute discussion, we had made the decision for the abortion. What I thought was solving a problem, a short-term problem. You know, I felt a little bit relief at first, and then until she called me after the abortion had happened. I just went into oh my gosh, it was almost like a numb feeling. And I just couldn't put words to my feelings. It was horrific. And it happened right away. I thought God had a good list and a bad list. And guess what? I just ticked the bad list on one of the worst things you could ever do, helping to murder your child. Lacking self-esteem, lacking confidence, I went off to college. I met an amazing girl, Christian girl. She was from a wonderful family. She's probably everything that I ever wanted to be myself that I wasn't. She made me a better person. So I remember my way of having relationships with somebody was just the opposite of what God wanted me to do. I meet you, I fall in love, and I want the intimacy, because I never had it as a kid. And that intimacy, when you're a kid, is so powerful that you can't control it sometimes. And you build this relationship with a woman, and you both don't know what you're doing. And it results in a pregnancy. This was a little bit different, I thought, because we were talking about getting married, we were getting close to graduation, and I felt redeemed. And I'll never forget the look on her face. It was the look of right through me and just saying, this isn't going to go this way. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, I'm not having this child. I'm having an abortion. It finally came down to a plea, and I just sat and I said, I tell you what, I know you're scared. And she told me, my parents find out they're gonna kill me, my friends at home find out they're gonna kill me, you know, I can't go through with this. And the tape was playing over and over again. I'd been there, done that, I've been in your shoes, even though I couldn't tell her that, right? I was so ashamed from the first abortion, I couldn't tell her that. So I remember telling her, let me take the pressure off of you. I'll tell your parents I got you drunk. I'll tell your parents I did whatever. And you can say, Chuck's the bad guy. I'll go to jail. I'll tell everybody I raped you. I don't care. Save the child. I felt like looking at God's good list and bad list, that I'm checking off another major sin in my mind. That how could I ever recover from this? And it's very interesting. And she said no. And she looked right at me and said, and you're responsible. You need to pay and take me to Planned Parenthood. I remember getting back to school, and all I wanted to do was be with her. All I wanted to do was talk. I wanted to I had these 2 abortion experiences pent up inside me, and I wanted to recover. I thought, hey, maybe you and I can recover. I'll go back to church. I started thinking about it. She was so wonderful, and the relationship started to fade. At that point, I didn't realize for the next probably 10 years that I would be bonded to her in a way that I can't explain. It's almost like having a child but not having the child, right? And as I started to grow up and mature and started to understand the impact of the choices that I made, I really started to, the depression got worse. It didn't get better, it got worse. And there was a point in time where I had to start facing myself, and that was real challenging. I was so closed on the inside, no way you could open me up. I had a wall here, and somehow inside I was trying to break through. And it started the recovery process because I started to search. I had no other way to go. I started going to multiple churches, different types of churches. I started sitting in the back, and I'd sit there like this. And I'm like, this is so boring. I'm not connecting to anything. I'm listening to everything. Yeah, you people are all happy and perfect. You have not been through what I've been through. You know, I'm the worst sinner you possibly could ever imagine. All right? And I remember having those feelings. But I couldn't stop going. I just couldn't stop going. And it just started happening more and more that I started opening more and more to God. And I started hearing about God's forgiveness, that God loves the sinner but hates the sin. And I was like, I hear that, but I don't trust you. You couldn't, there's no way that God could deal with my situation. I'm the worst sinner in the world. You know, I got 2 of these under my belt. And I'll never forget it. I think got fed up of being sick and went in and talked to my priest. What was gonna be a half-hour meeting turned out to be about a 2-hour meeting of me just literally crying on the floor and picking myself up and telling my story and opening up, and the pain just coming out after all this time. And I'll never forget it. He was just so calming. So nothing I could say would rattle Father Mike. And I'm waiting for that response. Because in my relationship with my mother and father, I couldn't have feelings. I couldn't have that discussion. You know, if I got angry, the anger came back at me. I'm waiting for the anger to come back at me. It never did. It never did. That changed my life. That started me on the road to recovery. Through meeting new friends, meeting new people in church, meeting people that were loving and caring, the non-judgmental, I worked my way to a couple retreat programs called Rachel's Vineyard Retreat. Ended up going into a weekend retreat, one retreat for each abortion. It's just what I had to do. So I've gone through this growth, and you don't have to go through the pain and suffering. And it comes down to one word, trust. You can trust in God and the Lord. God will put amazing people into your life if you open your heart and you ask for help and you ask for forgiveness. And God loves me. I mean, and I know that now. My heart is full of joy. That's what I have today. That's why I'm here today, and that's why I have the joy today.
When Charles trusted his life to Christ, he found forgiveness and joy. That same forgiveness and joy is available to you. If you're facing an unplanned pregnancy right now, or you're concerned that you might be pregnant and you don't know what to do next, there are resources and help available. Please go to our website at reallifetv.life and check out the resources and the options that are available to you. Up next today on Real Life, meet Sharon.
I grew up in the Midwest, and I was the youngest of 3. We looked like the sitcom Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, but yet what was going on inside was not shown on the outside. I was sexually abused by my father at a young age. Probably it went on for when I was like 6, 7, and 8, and 9 until I was about in 5th grade, and the last attempted attack came at that time. And then I was older and able to, avoid situations where I could be putting myself in that danger. Well, I went away to school, and I didn't know this as a rational thought, but I wanted to get away from my home, from the city, from the state. I wanted to get as far away as what I possibly could. So I went to a small private all-girls school in another state, and I was finally out of the house. I was free. There was nothing lurking after me or anything like that. And so, of course, here comes the enemy, because I had freedom finally, and so all of these temptations were there. I was still running from my past, and how was I going to numb that? So I first was introduced to drugs, alcohol, sex, and I kept running from then. And it's just how to numb that pain of the shame and the guilt that had happened to me in my past. I met my first husband in my sophomore year of college. I found myself that I was pregnant. We were married for 1.5 years, and we had our first apartment. We were beginning the climb in the corporate world, and we kind of had this life. Everything was good. We just had a new car. He wanted to attend law school, and we kind of have these things mapped out. And as I found myself pregnant 1.5 years into the marriage, and not really having any strong Christian value system. You've got to love a child. I wasn't loved, so I'm just like, no, it's okay to take that child's life, because to me it wasn't a child, it was just a blob inside of me. And of course my husband agreed with that and was really pushing for that, and I went along with it. We lived another 3 years married, and a lot of things started happening. You just can't do something like this without it affecting you emotionally, and that's what it did. The hole in my heart from the abortions, from the trauma in my earlier life, was still growing and growing and growing. I was married 5 years in my second marriage, and I found myself, we were pregnant, and I was so happy. It was just an amazing feeling. Some things started to happen physically, and I ended up miscarrying that child. That was so devastating, because coming from my past with one abortion, I thought, finally, I'm having a child and all is good. And probably, feeling a little repentant for having that child and aborting the first one. Anyway, I had the miscarriage, and that was really emotional and traumatic for me. And people don't realize this, but you do grieve. I grieved for the loss of that child. I had such hopes for that child, and to lose it was very, very traumatic. Went through a depression with that, had to deal with the grief. I didn't have any faith foundation to help me through that, and so it was all just taking one step at a time, but there's still woundedness and pain that came through that. I was so broken from everything that I had experienced and done. I just couldn't take it anymore. The depression was weighing heavier and heavier on me, and the guilt and the shame. And finally, one 2 a.m. morning in January of 1993, by my pool, I just said, God, if you are real, Jesus, if you are real, you've got to come into my life, because I just can't take it anymore. I just wanted peace. And from that moment on, something happened in my life. Jesus came in such a real way into me. And I must have cried and sobbed for hours. I don't even know how long it was. But you know, I was just confessing everything that I had done in my life. And I was sobbing, but as every tear that I shed was a tear of cleansing that only Jesus Christ could do. And at that moment, He took away all of the burdens that I was carrying that I wasn't meant to carry. God just started preparing me. I was still in the corporate world, but about a year or two later, I was caught in corporate downsizing, and He took me out of the corporate world. It was amazing how He had started providing for me. I was separated and still had the house and everything, but He didn't even have a Bible. I did not have a Bible. I had a book that my Catholic friend had given me called God Calling. And so I read that devotional every day. I only watched Christian television and Christian television network and different stations, and I just was so absorbed with everything that I could possibly get into, that it was faith-based. And also prayer. I didn't even know what intercessory prayer was, but I just knew that in 1995 that I was to walk around my pool all night and pray, and that's what I did. And so it's been an incredible journey. And then in 1999, He called me into the ministry. August, I enrolled in the 3-year pastoral training program, and I went on my first missions trip to Western Honduras. And getting ready for this trip, our team had to meet every week for 10 weeks to learn different skits and kind of gel together, learn each other and everything. And so the pastor that was leading our group said that we had to develop our testimonies. And I'm just like, our testimonies? What is that? So I knew that I had to share my past. And at that point, no one except the person that was involved knew about the abortions, knew about the drugs, the sex, the alcohol, and the affairs. No one really knew about that. And so I went down to make some copies for papers that we needed, and at that moment, the still small voice inside of me said, Sharon, you have to speak this out into the light, because the darkness will no longer have a hold of you. And so I knew that that meant that I had to share about the abortions and the affairs in my life. And so it was difficult, but I put it together, and I had another team member come up to me, and she said, thank you for sharing, because I had an abortion also. And so we helped each other, and in the meantime, we went to Honduras, and I was able to minister and share my story one evening on a mountaintop in the remote Honduras, and men were crying, women were crying, they were repenting, they were coming to the Lord, and that was just by sharing what God could do to a broken life that surrendered to Him. Every time that I speak out my story, I get a little more healed, and that was the beginning of a incredible journey of inner healing that the Lord had prepared for me. And so if I can share my story, and if it makes an impact and changes somebody else's life, saves a child's life, it's all worth it. Because I want my life matters, my children's lives matter, and when we speak it out, the enemy no longer has a hold of the guilt and the shame.
Sharon's life was marred by the sexual abuse she endured as a child. Later, as she grew older, a divorce, an abortion, and another miscarriage only added to her grief. If you're struggling right now with guilt over an abortion, or you're suffering with that silent grief of abortion, we want you to know that there is help, that there are resources available. Please go to our website and check out the resources and the help that's available to you. There are people that care about what you're going through and want you to heal and be able to move forward with your life.
My name is Saul Pichon. My wife and I have been part of New Life Solutions here in the Tampa Bay area for going on 20 years. And it's really interesting because of my past. My wife pointed out to me years ago, says, you know, honey, your mother was a Holocaust survivor. And God has and wants you to be involved in the Holocaust of abortion here in America today.
It was 1942. Jermaine was only 16. Only 16 years old when her entire family, her mother and 5 sisters and herself, were forced to leave their home along with thousands of other confused and terrified families. Jermaine had already witnessed the cruelty of the Nazis when she watched her father being killed in front of her by a German soldier. As the family was herded like cattle into a crowded boxcar, their destination was unknown. And although they were told that they were headed for Poland to be given homes and to work on a farm where they could earn some much-needed money, the horrible reality was that they would soon join so many others whose lives would be tragically and horribly ended for one reason. They were Jewish, and they were an unwanted people. Jermaine was so scared, she had no idea what was happening or where they were taking her family. They traveled for 8 days with no food or water. Jermaine's mother tried to comfort the family, but they had heard stories of what this day would mean. The only comfort was that they were together. But that would soon change. As the train arrived at the now infamous Nazi concentration camp known as Auschwitz, Jermaine's family was immediately shattered. Her mother and sisters were led away, presumably to the gas chambers. They killed 3,000 in the gas chambers that day. She would never see them again. Jermaine was put in a group of 300 teenage girls and held in Block 10. The living conditions were unimaginable. This block was known as the experimental block, where the young girls were saved for medical experiments. Jermaine was in shock. She had just lost her entire family, and now she was all alone. A 16-year-old girl not knowing her fate, but was fearing the worst. Jermaine's fears were soon realized as she was led into a small dark operating room where she would soon be confronted by the infamous Angel of Death, Dr. Joseph Mengele. Without anesthesia, Mengele began an operation to remove Jermaine's reproductive organs. He had already removed one of Jermaine's ovaries when airplanes from the Allied forces began a bombing raid. Mengele ran away to hide, but instructed an imprisoned Jewish doctor who was assisting with surgery to finish the job. It was as if an angel of life had come to Jermaine. Instead of completing the surgery, the Jewish doctor decided to leave her remaining ovary intact. But he made her promise 2 things. 1, that she would hide her cycle so that no one would know what he had done. And 2, that she would name her first son after him. Jermaine kept both promises. 3 more years would pass before Jermaine was freed from her captors. She met and married Simon, another Holocaust survivor. Not knowing if she would ever be able to have children of her own, the Lord blessed she and Simon by increasing her family to include 4 sons who married and gave her 8 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren. Simon and Jermaine named their firstborn son Solomon. Solomon Saul Pichon. The family will rejoice and increase even more with the arrival of 2 more great-grandchildren as Saul's daughter welcomes twin girls in November. Because of Jermaine's horrible ordeal, Saul's very birth is a miracle in itself. But because of Saul's commitment and the commitment of so many other caring people, miracles are happening every day. Because we are called for such a time as this, today's Holocaust of abortion is being replaced by miracles of life. One day at a time, one life at a time.
So you can see from that video what my mother went through. She had over 200 relatives, and 3 survived. Herself, an uncle, and years later she found out a cousin had survived. You know, pregnancy and childbirth, I mean, they're so sacred to God. Jesus came as a baby, and so there's nothing more sacred, nothing more special than from God our Father and Creator for a woman to have that child. And even if the woman is not married, they have options. And their options are, number one is parent. Number two, place for adoption. Number three, abortion. Why do I say that? Because abortion's legal. But we share with them, that's not your best option. The other two are the way to go. And we share with them why. Many people know that before I came here 20 years ago, I was in private practice. I worked in a psychiatric setting for 3 years and in private practice for a number of years. And we started seeing, in the hospital, we started seeing some of these women, you look in their charts and you see they had abortions in their past. But this was back in the late 80s, early 90s. We were just starting to see the connection, connecting the dots between an abortion and suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts. And now, it's proven, it's proven. Again, you listen to the media, they say, no, it's not. It has nothing to do with depression and anxiety. Women just go on with their lives. No, it's a trauma. It's a trauma. They may not sense it right away, but it's going to come to the surface. Let me share with those of you who are dealing with a crisis pregnancy today, seek out your local pregnancy center. They're there to support you, to help every one of the areas that you're dealing with, spiritually, emotionally, physically. They'll help you choose life for your child, either to parent or place for adoption. And there's so many couples out there that are looking to adopt a child. Don't feel the pressure to abort your child when there's help out there in your own community.
As you've watched today's program, you may realize that you are at a place that you're ready to ask for forgiveness. So I'm going to lead you in this short prayer. Father, I ask you to forgive me of my sins. Forgive me for not trusting you more fully and having that abortion. Give me, through your Son, Jesus Christ, a brand new start. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, we would love to hear about it. Please go to our website and look at the resources there and let us know that you prayed that prayer with me today. We'll see you again next time on Real Life.
If you need help in dealing with an unplanned or crisis pregnancy, or help in recovering from a past abortion, please visit our website at reallifetv.life. There are so many godly organizations and churches all across the country who want to help you and show you the love of Jesus, no matter what your situation is.